Hello and welcome. My name is Irmina, and welcome to Journeys with Irmina. This is Living Arts documentaries, life documentaries, visual logs, and they're specifically designed to help those who are highly sensitive or highly spiritual and highly spiritual find their milieu, their middle ground in life by practicing what's called living arts, the different ways of living to make our lives feel full, content, and rewarding overall. So today, typically, I've been doing these videos specifically around movement journey or returning to movement journeys that I'm calling this one. And it's about diving deeper into the reasons why some habits tend to stay and others we have trouble keeping up. Now, this is beyond the superficial level: time, resource, commitment, family, life, work. And these things distract us from doing what we need to do. So I want to go below that level. So we're not just looking at things in the superficial level. We're doing a deep dive. And typically, I just do an update. Today, I'm not doing an update. Today, what I'm really going to talk about is four things that came up that are revealing themselves to be the reason beyond the typical reasons of why it is that we have challenges staying committed. So let me get started. The first thing is called, I'm going to call it living with opposite truths. Okay. So what are opposite truths? Opposite truths are things that are opposite, but they're both true. Makes sense, right? But they're something like, for example, I'm not moving right now and I'm not doing the activities I need to do. And then the other truth is I am moving toward becoming more active. I am becoming more active. These things can be true at the same time because at the present moment, I may only be moving 2, 3 times a week. But in the future, I want to be moving 7 times a week doing high intensity workouts, whatever the thing might be. That's the big goal for you or somebody else. And what I'm finding is, and I'm going to give a couple more examples so that we can really get this. But what I'm finding is that that particular living with opposite truth is a cornerstone of most issues. Here's what I mean by this. I'm looking at my notes to make sure I don't forget something here. We want to be able to accept the current reality, okay? And the current reality may be, let's say let's just around body size, okay? Let's say the current reality is that body size is 3 sizes than you want to be or where you typically feel healthier for you, okay? 3 or 4 sizes. And you wanna go down to another one. So what is true for this moment is you are at this particular size. So I'm gonna pick a random number here. Let's say you're at a size 18, okay? And your goal is to get down to a size 12, or let's say you're at a size 12 and the goal is to get down to a size 6. It doesn't matter. The point is where you are and where you're trying to go. Both those things are true. Where you're heading is true. Where you are is true. But they create a heavy conflict, and that heavy conflict looks something like I'm never gonna get there. This is a big gap. Um, I have clothes that are size 12 when I used to wear them, and now I am size 18. I have clothes that don't fit me, and I'm in between. Whatever the thing may be for you or for us, okay? So they're contradicting reality, but they're both true. You're still moving towards something and you're still at a particular place. Can you hold both of them sacredly without needing to corrupt one? What I often see people do is they gotta really corrupt one. What I mean by this is the current state may be, oh, this is terrible. I feel like this. I look like this. And it's like all the negativity. And this happens with people as well. Like if there's two types of people, for example, that you like being around, but they don't like each other, right? Two types of people, but they don't like each other. And there might be in you this conflict of, well, I can't hang out with both of them. So this one is, what's so and so is negative, so and so does this, so and so does that, just so you can feel okay about hanging out with this person. When in reality, is you can probably hang out with both of them if they're providing you something meaningful in your life and they're healthy for you, all of that being said. But you could probably have both experiences. And we see this with racism often, where it's an either or, right? Rather than just being gray. or being able to hold both truths at the same time and being okay. So when it comes to movement or any kind of habit, we have to be able to hold the current state of things and the future desire without corrupting either of them. Let's move on. Number two, that what I'm going to call it value-based priorities. Okay. That sounds fine. Value-based priorities. Value-based priorities basically means whatever it is that you're doing has to be aligned with a deeper value and core versus superficial, what other people think, FOMO, and everything else that goes on in this world. It needs to be really at the core something that is true for you and matters significantly for you. Um, why this is important is that it makes it easier to accept the trade offs, the discipline, the challenges you face or we face. And it also makes it easy to pivot when something comes in and provides a challenge, like to be able to keep pivoting as we go along because something is challenging us, right? Let me try to give an example. Okay. Health and wellness is a high value item for me. I've been involved in health and wellness all of my life, literally since, I was a wee person, right? Um, And because it's such a high value and a deep value base, I'm able to pivot and make trade-offs and make uh, difficult decisions to always come back to it. Even when I'm off, I always come back to it. And to stay with some things long term, like one of the examples I gave when I first started this recording or this series was herbal medicine, I'm able to stay with that without any issues. Like natural meds, I've been doing since I was born because I was born in a natural medicine environment where that's important. That's how we grew up. So I have no issue staying with that. Not at all. Movement, on the other hand, requires a lot of pivots for me. It requires pivots around where I'm moving. I used to have a job once I was traveling around the country. I had another job when I was traveling around a district and going in different places in the district. Each of those challenges made it really hard to pivot. And whenever I had to pivot around movement, movement would go. Movement would end up being the last thing I go back to because the pivoting was was super hard. Now, value, even though I value health and wellness, I don't particularly have this high value around movement, but I do have a high value around dance. It's a little weird, but what I'm trying to get at is the values that we have can make certain things easier for us to do and other things harder for us to do. All right, I'll leave that and then move on to the next one. Um, okay, I'm just going to call this reflection. Okay, resource reflection. We as human beings have limited resources, time, and I mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to dive a little deeper to it. Time, um, commitments, relationships, whatever the thing is, maybe we can't do everything all the time. So we have to do these periodic evaluations. These periodic evaluations require a sitting down with our higher self. This is where I'm going to go a little deeper. It's not just checking things off a list, because sometimes the lower aspect of ourselves have needs and desires and things that it wants to do that may not necessarily be in our best interest. Sitting down with the higher aspect of ourselves requires intentionality, and that is um, not always possible because, again, there could be conflict with time and resources. But one of the things I've learned over the years that intentionality can happen in 2 minutes. Actually, it can happen in 30 seconds. Intentionality can happen in 30 seconds. So it's critical that we take time to reevaluate our schedules, reevaluate our life plans, and et cetera, to make sure that we are aligning with our values and that we're able to hold those conflicting things uh, together. The last thing is mindfulness and pausing. I've talked so much about that over the years that I tend to avoid talking about it now because it's a common term. We hear it all the time, mindfulness and pausing. My experience is we have more time for pausing than we have for concrete mindfulness practice. Hear me out. Pausing can happen now. Like I paused several times in this video just so that I can catch my thinking, I can catch up with my thinking, and so that the words come out that make sense based on what I'm thinking. A pause could be something as simple as this: a deep breath in, a deep breath out, and a reconnection with ourselves to be able to move forward. We don't pause as often anymore. When I was growing up, people do this, spoke that way. There was always a pause. Now it's rush, rush, rush. Let's get this going. Let's move. Let's do this. Let's do that. So I think if we focus on these micro pauses, they might actually be one of the things at the base of the issues that we have with maintaining a long term practice. Mindfulness is obviously a deeper level of pausing. It's deep reflection. It's emptying the mind. We don't ever empty the mind per se, but what we can do is give us an opportunity to observe as the thoughts, the millions of thoughts, decide to travel through our perspective, our mind, and not allow those thoughts to sit for so long that we embody them. And in some cases, there are some thoughts that repeat over and over again to recognize they may not actually be coming from us, that they may be sourcing from either things we've watched, what people used to tell us when we were younger, um, conflict, being able to hold conflicting ideas, etc. So I want to stop here with 12-minute mark and share sort of a conclusion about this. So when journeying into some new practice, I would, I am continuing to dive deeper into those four things. If I were to pick the number one thing for me, it would be the pausing, even briefly, to reconnect with enough with myself to be able to decide whether the trajectory I'm on is the trajectory that is aligned with my values. The second thing would, and I'm doing it in reverse, but this is how it's coming to me right now, would be the value based, uh, aligning with our values. I, d- I actually have a system. It's a divination system I created many, many years ago that helps you identify what your values are. I call it a divination system, even though it's not a let me imagine what's going on in my future. It's not that kind of divination. It's more like let me dive deep, divination, let me dive within myself to uproot, to see, to recognize, to determine what my core values are because oftentimes I don't see them or understand them. So be sure if you want to know more about that, ask me about it. I'll be more than happy to share more. But my values are very clear these days. They weren't when I was younger. So, but if you have things aligned with your values, you're more than likely to come back to them. The third thing is the routinely assessing things, routinely assessing whether you are still maintaining the goal, the trajectory you had in mind. And then last but not least, um, being able to hold conflicting ideas, conflicting thoughts. Yes, you could currently uh, not be in the work that you want to be in. And at the same time, it could be true that you are moving toward it, right? Both can be true. You could still be uh, accepting the reality of, let's say, this country is another example, accepting the reality of where we are now in this country or state or county or community, whatever it is that you're living, at the same time actively working toward changing it. Because as you continue to hold both together, what you may find is that there's a gap between what things are and where you're moving, and eventually that begins to move in a direction, and the gap becomes less and less because you're changing either the environment or you're changing yourself, whatever the case might be. All right. Thank you for stopping by and visiting again. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to know more about any of the things that I do that support living arts and living in alignment with your true self, do not hesitate to ask. And if you're watching this video and you have ideas, suggestions on things I can talk about in the future, please let me know. All right, until then, thank you for stopping by again. This is Irmina signing out.